Honest community, before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favour to ask. If you enjoy the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know.
And welcome to the Honest Property podcast with your hosts Becky and Ruth, and we like to talk all things holistic business and property investing. And today we have Kristina Castellina, is that right? Have I said that?
You got it.
Yeah, Castellina. And I have a feeling I saw you in the toilet at Girls and Property, the first one. I have a did you go to the first one?
I don't think so.
Well, it must have been someone else then.
Where was it? Where is it? Where was it?
It was at a hotel with Athena, Dobson, Girls and Property first event. Oh, maybe it was someone else. Well, someone looked exactly like you.
I've never been told that before. It wasn't me. I haven't been. I haven't. I've only spoken to Athena on a podcast and on Instagram, but I've never been to an event.
It definitely was doppelganger then, because
or you were just like really hoping it was Christina.
I was like, it might be her.
Around.
So scrap that. I've never met Kristina in my life, but we have admired her from afar then on social media, and everything that she represents. She is someone that we've looked at her content online and can really relate with. She's really honest.
Oh my gosh, so much more truth. You were one of the first people we saw online who was just sharing more reality. And not like fluffing it around and being quite straightforward, but you were still you are like really colourful and just full of character. And we're like, oh, she's not like boring. She's like fun and creative and colourful, and your story is just like really unique as well. So
Yes.
yeah, do you want to fill us in?
So how did you get started? Because you were a singer, weren't you?
Yes, I was a singer. I was a money-hungry singer. I feel like I've always been, even as a child, just as soon as when I realised, obviously as a kid you don't understand money, but when I started to actually comprehend money, I was always so intrigued and interested with how people earn their money. And I was that person, and I still am that person, that if I go to an event, I will look at how many people are in the room, how much are the tickets, start guessing how much they're paying for things, and I'm looking at their profit margin. And I've always been like that. Always.
We've been like that. Like, we'll go to Disneyland and we'll be like, how many people are here?
So that's
one ticket was this much. So what are the overheads? Just have fun.
Just have fun. At the theatre, I start thinking, how many hundreds is that? How many people? And I bet there's cheaper seats, and they work it. Have fun. Just stop thinking about it. But I've just always had that sort of like, what do people do? How can I make money? So it was inevitable. And also I was amazing at Monopoly as a child. And no one said to me, by the way, this is a really good skill. Clearly you've got a bit of talent for buying the hotels. But I just, didn't ever piece together, because I thought to buy houses, you had to be loaded, you had to be really rich, and I didn't have that background. So I think it was basically a combination of desire, a bit of a natural flair for entrepreneurship, and then just the right path, basically, taking the right steps, reading the right books. Went to a networking thing for Rich Dad Poor Dad that ended up being a sales pitch.
Yep.
For property, and then just kind of didn't overthink it. I just trusted my gut and was like, this sounds like a good idea, buying property using other people's money. What could go wrong? This sounds great, and that, literally just didn't overthink it and started, and I was 27.
That's so funny, because that's exactly what happened to us.
But aren't we glad? Aren't we did?
So glad. Look at me, I'm thriving.
So you were so how did you get into singing? Like, did you know that was going to be the path? Like, from school you went, I'm going to be a singer, and did you want to live that sort of like that freelance type of life? And then you thought, like, yes, so tell me a bit about that.
Well, so I've always been quite an emotional child, in that just being different. I have always been different, never overly fitted in. never looked like anyone, and just had this absolute set, like really dramatic. I remember watching the Brit Awards when I was a child and crying because I wasn't there, and I thought that I just felt this, like, I should be there. Like, I don't know what this is, and I don't understand how they do that, but I feel like I belong in this space of entertainment. But I moved around loads, so that was quite problematic in that I never, well, first of all, when we lived in Scotland, in Aviemore, there were no dance classes. There's no singing classes. It was very, well, it's a ski resort. So if you could ski, like, great. But if you were at all creative, it was all the nearest city, which was like 34 miles away. So, which I ended up going to school there. But so I would go to like a summer camp where it'd be a week and it would be singing and dancing, and I'd live my best life, and then I would just go back to like reality. And then it basically all started, to cut a long story short, when we eventually moved to Blackpool and I was just turning 15. Blackpool is literally like all singing, all dancing, showgirls, lots of shows. The Pleasure Beach, prime example. At the time, I think they had 3 shows that ran every night at the Pleasure Beach. Plus, you've got all the theatres in Blackpool. So, and I could ice skate. So we went to the ice rink and I was getting lessons, and that's when I started to discover dancing and singing. I could naturally sing, but I was quite embarrassed of my voice. I was quite embarrassed because I had quite a big voice. I didn't know how to use it. I knew that when I was singing on my own, I was like, gosh, I actually can sing a bit like Celine Dion, but I could never like sing in front of people. And then my mum took me into this group singing class when I was 15, and I was just way better than everyone else. I was way better. Like, we were singing, like, all of us, like, really boring, 10 of us in unity singing like Atomic Kitten. And then she'd like pick me out and I'd be singing all, like, doing all the flares. And I was like, God, you're all shit. Well, that was like the reality of like, most people can't actually sing like this, but I was still quite shy. And then I started having one-to-ones with this lady called Mandy. And she was all like, real big, and she gave me loads of confidence. All happened really quickly. Within a year, I went from like, I'm too embarrassed to sing, to like, all of a sudden I think I'm Celine Dion. And then I auditioned. It was really difficult to get in. I auditioned for this musical theatre college in Blackpool, a private one, called Phil Winston's Theatre Works, and he basically supplied like the dancers to the Pleasure Beach. His girls were like incredible, and I just wanted to be one of those girls. And I basically got in, even though I no experience of dancing, because I could sing so well. And then I had 3 years of catching up, and then I left as a showgirl.
Wow.
I love this story. So there's so much I want to unpack.
You're not a Leo, are you?
I am
I knew it. Sorry for those who are listening and the yelling, because it's all just making sense. But it seems like, because I know you mentioned you were adopted and you had to move around, and you've done so much confidence building exercise. It really seems like all these experiences that you've had has resulted in what you do and who you are now, which is, yeah, like with especially with performing arts, just standing on stage, let alone singing in front of people, you had to build like an amazing amount of confidence just to go and do that, which I can imagine really helped with the audacity that you need to have when it comes to doing property or having your own business.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of it, though, with the stage stuff, you do it because you love it. And what I would find, and it's like the curse of being a performer, is there's always someone better. There's always someone thinner, more flexible, younger, just better, generally, always. There's so much talent in the industry. And so, like, what I would find is, even if I was like in a show and I absolutely loved it, generally, it wouldn't happen every night, but there would always be nights where, like, I would go on and I would love it and I would look so confident, and I'd come off and I was thinking, I'm just so shit. I'm just shit. Like, you just do. Like, as a performer, it is a curse. I think it is a real talent and a real skill if you can be a performer and have people judge you night after night after night and not berate yourself.
Yeah.
Especially as well, like one thing I always found really difficult was like in the pantos, I was always the most boring character because I was the princess, which is just such a shit role. And I'd sing all these really pretty songs, but like they have no character, just so boring. And then whenever there was a review, the review would always be the prince and the comedy character. And they'd just go like, like a sweet performance by Kristina Castellina, or a truthful performance, or just something really, basic. And I'd always just think, oh, yeah, I don't know, like you have to have so much resilience. And it's never that I got a bad review, but I wanted fucking brilliant review. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? I wanted a review saying she stole the show. She was there because that's just as a performer what you want.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get that playing Snow White because it's a boring character.
Do you think like there's also, because I know like how we act now in like adult years, there's a lot of reflection of like how we grew up when we were younger. Do you think like a lot of that plays into like the reason why you got into performance as well?
Yeah, well, to answer so two schools of thought. I just loved music. Always, even when I was like really young and happy before any sort of trauma, so to speak. But then I suppose you don't know because when you're adopted, the trauma happens quite young, doesn't it? As a baby.
When you did, as a baby?
As a baby, yeah, from like literally from hospital. Well, I was fostered for 6 weeks, and then I was adopted. So you don't know what impact that has, but I just know that from as early as I can remember, I just loved music. So I just think I just love it so much. And I would like sit in my room and obsess about the few CDs I had, and I would listen to it over and over while playing like on my PlayStation or whatever, and just being so happy, comforted with music.
I wonder if that's well,
It's in your DNA.
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah. So when you mentioned to us before that you're also half Asian, we were like, I see that makes a lot of sense. Do you want to share a bit more about how you felt about that? Because obviously your experience is from an adoption experience, so it'd be really interesting to know how that has impacted who you are today.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So growing up, my mum and dad always says, well, my mum would always say, you're Italian. You're Italian, that's why because they're blonde, both my parents are blonde. And she'd be like, you're Italian, that's you're the double of your grandma who had died, so I'd never met her. And that was kind of the cover-up story to me being adopted. So actually, and also my dad took my mum's name, which is Castellina. So the story fits. Like I look Italian, my name is Italian. So it's kind of been this lie that I've lived with. And even now, when I go, Kristina Castellina, people go, are you Italian? And sometimes I'm like, yeah, because I just can't be bothered doing the whole, well, actually, I'm adopted. And I'm half, like, who wants to hear that? So I just have to go, mm-hmm. But I found out when I don't know, maybe 2021, I got my adoption file. And what did it, I don't even, so it said father unknown. So it didn't tell me actually any details about my father. But there was all this carry on in my file about me being Caucasian and the doctors being asked to do tests on my skin to confirm that I wasn't Asian. It was really racist, to be honest. The file was a racist file. I was really confused. I was like, yeah, really bizarre. Anyway, the reason why this happened is that when I eventually tracked down my birth mum and I chatted to her, she'd had an affair with an Asian man who was married, who was a bit older, quite a lot older actually. So then they kind of broke it off, and then she got a white partner. She thought the baby was his, and then when she was having the scan, she realised actually no, it was the Asian man. She told her parents, and they were like, we're not having an Indian baby under this roof. Absolutely no way. Not a chance. Come to the council, we're going to, sign the documents to say the baby's going to be adopted. And then my birth mum thought that when I was born, they changed their mind. So when I was born, that's why she was saying to the doctors, can you just confirm that she's Caucasian and she's not Asian? Even though I came out with black hair, I know isn't it mental? Isn't it mental? So that's why the doctors were faffing around trying to convince her parents that actually I'm like totally Caucasian, and they're having none of it. And then so they just basically made her leave and they left me in the hospital. Yeah, but I am actually 100% half Asian. That doesn't make sense. I am definitely half Asian.
Oh my goodness. And do you know what's really striking is that you're not like, this isn't even very long ago.
Yeah.
No. Well, 38 years, so quite a long time, but not really. You know, when you meet these people, it's like, I know they're a different generation, but like, wow.
Before we continue, here's a quick thought. Ever feel like there's just never enough time to focus on what really matters in your business? You don't have to do it all alone. As they say, a great team makes everything easier. That's why we've partnered with the Freedom Geek. Their talented Filipino VAs help us with tasks like admin and podcast editing, just like for this episode, giving us the freedom to focus on what really moves the needle. If you're looking to reclaim your time and to work smarter, then check out the Freedom Geek. All the details are in the show notes. Now let's get back to our conversation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you have are you still in communication with your biological mother, or did you kind of put it there, like done with that, and you just have your relationship with your adoptive parents?
Yeah, I do have a relationship with her, but not. It's so hard because I think there's a lot of trauma for her, and I think that I trigger that constantly. So we're not close really, and I wish we could be, and I wish that there was a way that I could magic it all away. But I've tried. Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah.
So,
It's
because
so
you're a mother yourself, aren't you? Do you feel like, how does that, like, from having that sort of experience, do you find, like, how is there a way that you mother your children? How many children do you have?
I have two boys, 4 and
How big are they as well?
yeah. Do you know? It didn't hit me actually. I didn't realise the impact and what that must be like to give a baby up until I had my babies. And also as well, it makes me sad for me as that baby, just in the reflection of like when I had my first Grayson and I was desperate to breastfeed him and they were doing skin to skin and you like trying to do everything right and you're like, he would cry if I literally put him down for a second. He just wanted to be like on me the whole time. And like to think, that, and my second exactly the same, they just want to be with their mom and they can smell you and they can, all of these things. So then it makes me think, gosh, I wonder like what did happen to me? I'm left in a hospital. How long am I there? Like, who's picking me up? I'm obviously not getting breastfed, it's such a silly, I'm really into health. So that's why I'm like mentioning it because I've got a really bad immune system. And then I sort of think, I wonder if it's just because some of it maybe so I wasn't breastfed. You like think of these silly things.
That makes sense.
You just wonder, and also like the trauma that I might have been going through when like I'm crying and like you get used to the scent of your mom and like she's not, like all of these things, but then also the trauma that she must have gone through. Like a mental and a biological thing, like her body would have been like, where the hell is my baby? Her boobs must have been like out here.
Yeah, because isn't
I
it well that when you've had a baby, it takes months before your baby realizes that you're not together, like you still feel like you're one. And that was mind blown. And you can feel it. Like I would go to the toilet, I would go and have a bath, and my baby would be crying, and then I would just be spitting milk. Yeah, and they're like, I hadn't even heard my baby crying yet, but my signals in my head already knew before I'd even heard my baby was crying that I started just milking.
Right. It's only when you're a mother yourself that you realise that deep bond, that physical connection, like on all levels. And I think that's when I really felt that, like, that pain of like, gosh, that is such a painful thing. And also, she was adopted as well. So it's like generational.
Hey, oh,
interesting. I think that makes it, it's wow.
Wow.
I know. It just makes me want to hug her and be like, I love you.
Yeah, you have a lot of empathy for her situation, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
When did you have your children? Was it a lot later after you started property, or did you get into property knowing that that would be a pathway for you to feel more connected with your kids?
No, so I started property first. So I started when I was 27 and I had my first baby when I was 31. Was I 31? I think I was around 31 when I had Grayson. So I was well into property. And actually, I had a few blocks with children. I couldn't imagine it. And I think it's probably maybe because of everything. And I couldn't open my heart properly. I felt quite blocked in terms of like commitment. I had loads of boyfriends. My nan, bless her, she really, her favourite thing was to name all of my boyfriends. And then she'd be like, oh, I've forgotten one, Cass. What was the one that we think's gay? What was he called? We have to like go through them, and I go, do we have to do this, Nan? In front of the new boyfriend? Do we have to go through? Well, like, I had this pattern where like I'd fall in love. I wouldn't be able to fully like open my heart. Then I would get bored. And then a year in, I would break up with them and I find a new one. And I basically did that on repeat, this pattern. And then I met my husband and it felt different. But luckily I went to this thing called Turning Point, and that really worked on like my blocks, and it opened my heart. Like
that.
Yeah, it doesn't do it anywhere. Actually, the guy that runs it's really poorly. It's Dr. Rowe from Asset Academy. Do you know? Yeah. So he ran this like really intense, I think it's like a 4-day mad. I just spent the whole time crying about being adopted, to be honest, and like all the things that had happened. And I just cried. But that was a game changer, because after that event, I mean, I was literally pregnant 3 months later.
Wow. So you just released all of that, like hell, pented energy, and it just allowed you to go, I'm ready to like give more love to another human being. Like, because I can imagine, like, from what you're saying, from like your nan's telling you all of these boyfriends, it gets to a point, isn't it? It goes, oh, you want to get deeper? I'm not ready for that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it was like, if they really loved me, I couldn't deal with that. That was such a turn off for me. It was like there was like, I picked nice men. Luckily, I did pick nice men. So I wasn't one of those that picked awful men. So I would pick these lovely men and they would love me to bits. And then I would be like, oh, go away. I want a new one now.
You're too nice. Stop being nice to me.
And I think it was that thing of like rejecting love. Like I just couldn't accept it. So the more they loved me, the more I would be like, oh, get it away. I'm not worthy of this. Do you know what I mean? That's what was obviously going on inside. I didn't know that. But actually, I think I just didn't feel worthy of love. So I would be like, take that away. You know, like a bit of a sabotage thing going on.
Wow. And so then you ended up with your husband, who were you going through that process at the same time when you met is it your husband? You are married?
Husband. We've been together 10 years. And every year I say to him, 9 years longer than the last one. And he says, do we have to do this every time? And I'm like, honestly, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. The miracle of life. I know. So he's like, surely now, like, you're not going to still compare me to the others. And I'm like, but yeah, I can't tell you how proud I feel about this. I've been with someone for 10 years. It's like, wow, you know. Yeah, and we have to, obviously, we're married, we've got kids. So yeah, so I'd met him and we hadn't been together long enough for me to sabotage it. And then I went on Turning Point and I phoned him and I was literally like, I think I've got some real issues because I was adopted. And he was like, okay. And I was like, I just don't think I can accept love. And he was like, okay. And he's like, well, it sounds like you're doing the right thing being there. And I was like ringing him every night, my eyes swollen and enlarged because I'd cried so much. So I'd like kind of sort of tell him what was happening, but it was a lot for him to kind of take, really.
You know what? This Turning Point sounds like something that we did.
We did something called Landmark.
Did you ever hear?
I did Landmark before. I did Landmark first, but I didn't love it, to be honest.
You liked it.
I enjoyed
more than I did.
Yeah, and then you didn't like it, did you?
Until like the fine. Nothing wrong.
We did learn a lot of. It was basically just a reminder, like to condense. I think everyone should go on some sort of thing. Because it really teaches you to just go. We got one life. Just to simplify it, got one life. Let's just not hold grudges. Let's get rid of just. Yeah. Nothing means anything. We're all just specks of dust floating in the air, and everything is meaningless. But it was a way of doing it that
my conclusion was the meaning of life is nothing, but in the nothing you can create something.
Yeah.
And if we're all visions of God is the creator, that means we're mini creators and you can create the life you want. That's the conclusion.
Yeah.
If you want to cut to the chase. But if you want to like be in a room, like it's obviously so much more empowering when you're in a room of people.
You've got a lot of baggage from lots of different areas of their life, and like you don't realize that someone's being distraught, say, over a handbag is the same as someone crying about their mother who died.
Because
Like
we'll have like
it's
our
still
stories and experiences in our head that we don't know are going round and round and round. And there's so many versions of working through this, and there's so many different offerings out there now that help you work on your mindset based on your experiences as a child. And it's such important work.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, the one after Turning Point, I kind of felt like I'm done, I'm healed. And then actually, you realise, yeah, you're healed for the next few months, but actually, that work is never done. And so, but what I find is like when I'm particularly busy, or like you have the kids and your life changes, and then you're really busy with work, and you know you're juggling constantly, and I start to neglect myself. That stuff comes and bites me big time on the arse. So this year, my intention very much is, yes, I still want the success in the business, but actually I want to go inward this year, and like I've got my first ever heart healing session that I'm doing on Monday, which I like, you know, just like just things that I know will help, because it's
ongoing.
It's ongoing. It's never done. You think you're fixed, and then all of a sudden, you know. And it's not like I'm a lunatic. Well, my husband might say I am, but I just think we've all we're just thrown so much. Like there's so much information. There's so much going on all the time. I think sometimes you just need to go inward and make sure that you're okay and that you're healed and that you're operating from like a place of love, really.
100%. I think there's obviously your physical health, your financial health, your relationship health, but like spiritual health, which I would put this personal development work under, is neglected and not given the same level of importance.
Especially if you think it's like woo-woo to like work on yourself. And I like we've all said from our own experience, like we always thought that doing business was always, we were always in our masculine, like working. And then it got to a point where you go, actually, no, there needs to be a balance of your feminine and masculine energies. You can't just work in one mode. You've got to, and the feminine is slowing down, simplifying, really just like reminder, the spiritual side of reminding yourself, well, why on earth are you doing all of this like work?
100%.
And I feel like a lot of people actually are starting to see, well, especially women that from our circles are starting to see that it's not sustainable, and there's a new way.
You suffer if you don't give it attention. And it's like you go to the gym and you work out for your body, you nourish it with good food. This is an ongoing thing. You don't like have a salad one day and think I'm fixed. No, it's ongoing, and you have to keep working at it. So I'm really glad that you brought that to light.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. But with your properties, what type can we ask what kind of property? Because you have a mix of buy-to-lets. You've got your beautiful Empire yeah, it's stunning.
I love it.
So I've got 11 serviced accommodation. The majority of my portfolio actually is buy-to-let. I love a buy-to-let, so I've got quite a lot of buy-to-let, some mixed commercial. So I've got some shops, some like with flats above, and then obviously the more recently the serviced accommodation stuff. And then at the moment I'm just loving flipping. Loving doing a flip. Yeah, just like that dopamine hit. It's a great.
Like a big chunk of money has hit my bank account.
Yeah, it's because I've always generally held like the goal for me was always cash flow. And I still love that, always looking to increase the cash flow. But I'd only do like one flip a year, and usually that would be very much allocated, like, you know, do a flip. My goals were always quite small with it, you know, be picking them up cheap, you know, for 70 grand, and I'd make 15 grand profit, and that would be allocated to leaving X amount of deals. So it would all be very calculated. Whereas this year, I'm like, no, I want to make 100 grand, and some of it's for fun, and you know, it's not so like spreadsheet specific. It's just like I just want to make lump sums because it's fun, and why not?
Yeah. So you with flipping, what are you buying from auction, or are you going direct to vendor? What's your tips with flipping? Because some people can be a bit scared.
Yeah, no, I get that. So the most important thing with your flip strategy is you've got to know who your end buyer is. You've got to have a good team that you can trust, that you know that aren't going to go over budget and rip you off. You've got to be strict with your budget and know where to spend. As I think sometimes people overspend because they're doing a palace, but actually it's a 3-bed semi for 150 grand and they're spending on it like it's a £1 million house and getting really emotional about it. We're actually, you've got to know the standard of what sells and be happy with that, So I'm picking them up from auction, I'm getting them off market. I do view houses on the market like everyone else. I've got a couple of good relationships with estate agents where they'll tip me off on something that's coming to the market and give me first access. That doesn't happen loads though. That probably happens once or twice a year. So it's not like that's a constant stream. It's just multiple ways really of.
Yeah. And you use other people's money to be able to do these flips as well, don't you?
Hey guys, if you're new to property investing, we know exactly how hard it is to figure out where to start. That's why we created the Beginner's Roadmap. It's your guide to mastering the fundamentals so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Plus, you'll gain access to our free community for ongoing support. Just hit the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into this episode.
Yeah. So I've got lots of amazing angel investors that I've worked with for years. And I actually completed on one yesterday. It's the first time I ever used bridging. And it was a nightmare. And it reminded me, honestly, it was just like a mortgage. I don't know what all this, we can have money to you in 48 hours. No, you can't. You don't reply for 48 hours. So how you'll have money in my account is absolutely beyond me. Yeah, and I know there's a place for bridging, so I don't want to put people off if that's their option. You get the deal done no matter how you do it. But it was a real reminder of how easy and straightforward it is working with angel investors.
I was going to say as well, like if it works for you, that's great. Like, we've never used bridging ourselves. We nearly thought about using bridging and we went, why would, just from all the, no disrespect if anyone uses bridging, because if it works, it's great. But from all the stories we've ever heard when it comes to bridging, it sounds like a lot more stress than you can have just had good relationships with a few investors instead of relying on bridging. Like, that's from what we've heard.
It is exactly that. Like it was sold to me as this straightforward, just really easy thing. And it just like a mortgage. Isn't straightforward. You're dealing with an underwriter. They're asking for, the usual. You've got to go and get independent legal advice and get a personal guarantee, and they've got a first charge, which is absolutely fine. You would think that was enough, but then it's just, and also as well. So this particular property was an auction property, and luckily, and we ended up completing. It was meant to complete on the Friday, and it didn't complete until the following Thursday. And luckily, we didn't get a fine, but it just made me think. They could have cost me a lot of money because they were just useless. I don't think they opened that file until the Thursday when we were meant to complete on the Friday.
What made you go to decide to do bridging just because you thought, oh, I've never done it before, I'm going to give it a go?
Yeah, my friend uses it and she was like, honestly, it's so fun. Like, it's pretty easy. Your funds will go further. I just thought, actually, why not? And also because I coach people, I always like to kind of put my money where my mouth is and have an experience myself. So many people ask me about bridging and I haven't experienced it. So I thought I'll do it actually just so I can have an up-to-date experience of what it's like. When it hasn't been positive at all.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing. There's so many ways to approach property that works for some and not for others.
It goes back to like there's so much information out there and that might not suit you. So that's why we really like for ourselves as well this year has been like simplify and going with certain thing investing, the best type of investing was a big reminder of actually it's not meant to be like overly exciting.
Yeah.
It can be as boring as possible. You're doing it right.
That is it. People try and overcomplicate it and they try to run before they can walk. And because they're like, I spend all my day on Rightmove, they think that it's going to feel like that the whole way. And it's actually, that's like 1/10 of it. Like scrolling on Rightmove is not an indicator as to whether you're going to have a successful portfolio or not. And actually, it should be boring because it is boring. It should be boring. And if you're doing it right, there's not actually all that much to do because it should be outsourced, which again makes it quite boring.
Yeah, so that you can focus on flipping.
More of it, yeah. So then you can exactly, yeah. And even with the flips, I mean, it's only fun when the money lands in your bank, to be honest.
So out of strategies you do, is that your favourite one?
At the moment, but I change like the weather, so if you did it like 2 years ago, I'd be like, service accommodation is the best thing ever. I love Empress Hall, and now I'm bored, so now I'm on to flips. But this time next year, who knows? It could be something totally different.
Yeah.
It's impressive though that you've got a diversified portfolio essentially, and you make it sound like, oh, it's just like a fun project, whereas your attitude towards it is so great, because it just makes it seem like it's really enjoyable for you.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Well, it is enjoyable, apart from when it gets stressful, the stress is really high.
Yeah.
So what point?
Yeah.
Where does the stress arise for you, and how do you handle it?
So, I mean, again, it's so interchangeable. But at the moment, my stress is I've got a flip that was meant to complete before Christmas, and it's dragging its heels. And essentially, the funds that were meant to land were funding 2 projects that have completed this month. So the stress comes from the not knowing.
Yeah.
And is it gonna come in or not? And then the disappointment of getting closer and closer, and actually, I don't think this is gonna happen. And then the frustration of it not happening, and then going, okay, now I need to raise an extra 200 grand, quickly. That level of, and it will always get done, and it does always get done. But there's just that like low, that like low level anxiety that you're just in a state of like anxiety with it until it's sorted.
Yeah, it's like a bit of limbo time, isn't it? Until
and actually, like, there's a bit of relief, but I think sometimes that anxiety can stay with you unless you really work hard at shaking it off and like changing your state and doing something and going to yoga. Whereas I can find myself actually not changing my state and just being in work mode, and then I have to have a real word with myself and go, whoa, like, the problem's gone, so we don't need to keep this any longer. Like, let's shake it off, let's go in for a meal, let's try and, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it sounds like you've got the tools to make sure that you can address and you're aware when you need to address them. Just to wrap up this episode, we do have we've started doing this thing where we ask our guests, honestly, just finish the sentence. Honestly, the biggest thing I've learned is
Property takes longer than anyone tells you.
That's so true.
That's so true.
But it comes down to, like, it's so boring, but it is time in the market, isn't it? At the end of the
Yeah.
Whoever says they've got 6 properties in a year is lying.
Unless you've got like really good angel investor.
Yeah.
No, you actually can. No, you can. I remember when I was in Real Momentum, I think I got 8 buy-to-lets in 1 year.
Okay, maybe it is possible.
It is possible, but I just think you have to be a specific type of person that can deal with the stress, but have the funds available, and you can. Yeah, I did 6 deals like flips last year.
I was thinking more of like the process of going through. I think it's more like refinancing. Like, it takes time.
Yeah. You see, the buying them's the easy bit. It's the whole. It's the waiting, it's just the mortgages, it's all of that. It's so painful.
The processing, yeah.
The process is the painful part.
I just feel like it needs a massive shake-up.
Yeah.
So, where can our listeners find you?
So, I am on Instagram at thegoodlife_property investor. I've got a website, KristinaCastellina.co.uk. If you can stick my links. Oh, I've got my book, which is a really good starting point as well for people. Yeah. Starting from zero, how to invest in property using other people's money. It isn't just about that. It's the fundamentals and the foundation of property and investing safely. But obviously, it talks a lot about raising finance in a legal way.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So we're going to put all of that in the show notes somewhere, wherever they are. All the platforms have different areas. But yeah, thank you so much. We're so glad to finally virtually meet you, and hope to meet you one day, Christina.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.